"Hello, Hon." But Hon is required to address his older brother in a form that shows respect. "Hello, older brother An." Every casual exchange between them reminds them of their order within the family, and that hierarchy never ends. No matter how old they become, An will always be older than Hon, so An will always have authority, and Hon must always show respect. For my father and uncle, it meant that no matter how old they became, they would always be Grandmother Chung's children. That gave her the right to discipline them, not only as children, but even as grown men, and it was their duty to accept her discipline in complete submission, which they did. When things went wrong in the family business or a decision was made without Grandmother Chung's approval, the boys were required to kneel in front of her while she disciplined them with a bamboo rod, even when the boys were in their 40s. It was their duty to quietly accept their discipline without objection or complaint, even if the discipline raised welts or drew blood. To a Westerner, that practice sounds unjust and even abusive, but to this very day my father and uncle think their mother was a saint. I have never heard them say a single bad thing about her, and if you ask about those disciplinary sessions, they are both quick to say, "We deserved it. She only did what was best for us." If you can comprehend what I just described, then you're ready to understand ancestor worship. Ancestor worship is almost impossible for Westerners to understand, but once you fully grasp the concept of filial piety, you can see that one is just an extension of the other. You obey your parents when they are young, honor them when they are old, and worship them when they are dead. In the Mekong Delta, every village and most large homes had a family shrine that held figurines of heavenly beings and framed images of ancestors long dead but never forgotten. It was the family's job to light incense and place bowls of fruit in the shrine to honor them and seek their blessing. It was my father's duty to obey his mother regardless of his age, so it should come as no surprise when I tell you that when my father reached his early 20s, my grandmother informed him that he was going to get married. She had 2 reasons for arriving at that decision, neither of which particularly appealed to my father. The first was that he was a playboy, which my father found very fulfilling, but my grandmother considered immature and irresponsible. To her way of thinking, a grown man needed to settle down, and a wife was the best way to begin the process. Her second reason was that she wanted grandchildren. Her son wasn't getting any younger, and neither was she. She wanted to hear the pitter-patter of little feet, or maybe the march of tiny minions. She wasn't just building a business empire, she was growing a family, and she decided it was time to expand. My uncle was already married by that time, and my grandmother decided that now it was my father's turn. Of course, that left the problem of actually finding a wife for him. My father had met several young women who were interested in marriage, especially after he became rich and successful. There were even other business owners who approached my grandmother to suggest that a marriage between her son and their daughters might be beneficial to both of their businesses. But in each case, Grandmother Chung considered them either a bad match or a bad merger, and rejected all of their proposals. My grandmother wanted her son to get married, but she knew he lacked the motivation to find himself a wife, and probably lacked the wisdom to pick a good one, which meant one she approved of. The poor man needed help. My father thought he was happy and living the good life. How could you trust a man like that to make a decision for himself? That was why my grandmother sent for a matchmaker. Arranged marriage is a misleading term. It calls to mind secret alliances struck between mothers and fathers that bind their children from birth to marry someone they neither know nor love. I suppose that happens, at least in fairy tales, but that was not how it worked in Vietnam. My family practiced what might be better called assisted marriage, which is a respected tradition practiced all over the world. Assisted marriage is based on 2 basic but rarely recognized realities of life. Very few young people know what kind of person would be best to marry, and even if they did, they probably couldn't find them. That's where a matchmaker comes in. Some families in Vietnam employed the services of a professional matchmaker, an ancient and honorable profession that probably has a parallel in every culture of the world. Choosing a mate is not only a science but an art, and throughout history women have always handled the matchmaking. Women just seem to do matchmaking better, and it's a foolish man who is searching for a mate and turns to his brother for help. The woman my family employed was not a matchmaker by profession. She actually was a caregiver who had once lived with my family. Matchmaking was only her hobby, but apparently she was good at it, and she kept her eyes open for potential clients.